Welcome to the Tap Room, a conversation about beer, life, and community. It's time to sit back, unplug, and enjoy today's conversation. This is the Tap Room with Pet Skull Brewing.
And welcome to the Tap Room here on 1240 Radio WOMT, 107.9 FM, and streaming online anytime at WOMTRadio.com. Paul joins us once again from Pet Skull here on the Tap Room. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Terry. How are you, sir?
I can't complain, sir. I love my Friday mornings with you.
I enjoy them as well.
You know, like we're talking about beer, we're talking about life, we're talking about the community, and sampling some great craft beer, man. Like last week's was what was that called again last week?
That was the Cinco de Mind Block.
That's right.
Maibach.
Yes,
right?
And I'm excited because Friday mornings here in the Tap Room, we're talking again about a lot of good stuff. But today I want to kind of focus in on talk to us about, educate our listeners on the differences of beer, right? Because obviously we got light beer, you got dark beer, you got ambers, you got IPAs. Help me out to understand the difference and all the different qualities of these beers.
You bet. So, and not to get too technical, but an easy way to look at the beer world is there are really two major categories of beer. There are lagers and there are ales. The main difference there is the type of yeast that you use in those beers. Lagers are your traditional pilsners, like your dad used to drink, Miller Genuine Draft,
yes.
right, or PBR, right, or Old Style.
Yes,
all those old style type beers, those are all lagers, right? Lagers are typically really crisp, very clean, very clear. You can see through them, right? Ales then is a much bigger umbrella. That's where you get into dark beers like stouts and porters and IPAs, as you mentioned, which are really hoppy beers, or more middle-of-the-road styles like ambers, or the whole Belgian style. So it's really broken down into ales and lagers, and it's really just dependent upon the yeast. There's different processes when you make both. A lager takes a lot longer because the yeast needs to be, the yeast needs to ferment cold, like 50 degrees, which is pretty cold. So you got to have a way of keeping that beer cold when it's fermenting. And ales are different, maybe 68 degrees. So you got a lot of flexibility. So lagers take a lot longer to do just because of that cold fermentation. And then you have to cold condition it, which is actually what the term lagering means, cold condition. Let that sit in a cooler in kegs for a couple months to kind of come around, right?
Can they sit for too long before then they get ruined, out of curiosity?
There are certain beers that you do not want to leave sit around. For example, like IPAs are designed to be very bitter, so they are hopped very heavily. The longer that beer sits, hops will start to dissipate over time and really lose its flavorful characteristic. Most lagers, most of them, they can last quite a long time. You can sit on them for quite a long time.
Okay.
So it just depends. Dark beers, like a good Russian stout, a big 12% dark stout.
Yeah.
That it probably should sit for minimally 6 months before you even try it. And then the longer it sits, the better. Right. So there are a lot of beer connoisseurs out there that collect bottles that breweries make, and they will literally cellar them. Like they will put them down in the basement and let them sit for years, and they get better over time. Now you would never want to do that with a lighter like wheat beer or an IPA, because it would lose all its characteristics.
Like they hold on to them as a collector's thing, you're saying?
Yeah, they and maybe for special occasions they'll break them out and crack a bottle for a special occasion. A lot of folks get into trading, where they will trade with others for different beers. So they may go to a brewery for some special release and get themselves 5 bottles if they can. Sometimes that's not even possible. And then maybe share and trade and things like that. It's quite a big deal in the craft beer world.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I never knew that.
It's cool.
So, Paul, again, here on the Tap Room each and every week, we always sample a little beer.
Yep.
And so I'm excited because today, what are we sampling? Tell me more about this.
This is Pet Skull Brewing's Angst-Ridden West Coast IPA. So perfect example. This beer is designed to be drank quickly. You don't want to sit on this beer because it's very bitter, and it's called a West Coast IPA because it uses West Coast style hops. Okay, so like in this particular beer, it's Columbus, Simcoe, Cascade, Centennial, and Amarillo hops. Those are kind of some classic American hops. There's a newer IPA profile. They call them New England IPAs or East Coast IPAs, where they're more current hops, really citrusy, really fruity. You know, you can create almost like an orange juice style. This one here is old school. We call it our angst-ridden West Coast IPA.
I love that sound.
So
Right?
we're gonna pour up a little sample here. This one will make you maybe pucker up a little bit just because of the
Okay.
the bitterness. But
Cheers,
there you go,
man.
bud.
Here we go. Ooh.
yeah, so floral. You'll get
Yes.
a lot of floral characteristics with it. But it's fairly bitter, and at the end you can kind of still feel that.
I was gonna say
that bitterness
like,
hang
at
on
the
your tongue.
end, it stays there.
Yeah. Yep. So that's
Interesting.
that's a big hit, and that's one that when we make IPAs, we have a scale that we use. It's called the IBUs, which stand for the International Bitterness Unit. So which will tell you how bitter the beer is. IPAs are really bitter. They say that anything over 100 is almost undetectable by the human palate. This one is one of those beers. It's over 100 IBUs, so it's
Really?
it's fairly hoppy, fairly bitter, fairly good for you.
I love it. Paul, we want to invite our listeners to stop on down tonight at Pet Skull. Where do they go if they've never been to the tap room?
We are down at 220 North 9th Street in Manitowoc, right next to Shooter Malone's. We are open Thursdays and Fridays from 4 until 9 and Saturdays from 3 until 9. Stop on down.
And tune into the tap room Friday mornings here on WOMT.
Thanks for joining us today in the Tap Room on WOMT Radio with Pet Skull Brewing, where every craft beer is served with a side of camaraderie, community, and friendship. Experience the Tap Room for yourself every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Pet Skull Brewing on North 9th Street in downtown Manitowoc. And join us again next Friday morning here on WOMT for the Tap Room, a conversation about beer, life, and community. This is WOMT Radio, a Seahafer broadcasting station.